They recognized that I had a severe bacterial infection and medically induced a coma. I had presented in renal failure and septic shock. My kidneys and liver were shutting down. And my husband was told that I would not make it through the night.
Yeah, he was getting the word out. My wife might not make it. How much of you aware until you were told these things after?
I was aware of very little, except for one moment in which I knew I was about to die. And I knew that I was speaking to God. I could feel hot tears running down my face, and I asked him, please, God, don't take me now. We had worked so hard to build our family, and I wasn't ready, and I'm not ready is what I said to him, and that has so many levels of importance in it, doesn't it? I wasn't ready at all.
So what was that experience? Was it, you're going towards the bright light, or?
I saw a white light that started off small and started to get larger. And really, it wasn't so much my focus as this overwhelming feeling that I was going to speak to God and I was going to beg him not to take me yet.
You come out of the coma, your wonderful husband Mark is standing over you. How did you process when he's telling you, Cyndi, your hands and your feet had to be amputated?
At first, I was really taken back by the look of love in his eyes and how powerful it was. And when he said the words, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand how God could do this to me. How could he let this happen to me? And I entered what I call in the book the space in between, that moment in between trial and how we're going to overcome it. For me, that was a very difficult time. And I asked the question we always ask, why me? Why would you do this to me? And then I had to come to terms with that, to terms with how I would take care of my children without hands and feet. How would I take care of my family or do anything for myself? I had no idea what my future looked like. And God just spoke into me over and over again.
What was he saying? What were you feeling? Because I know while you were in the coma, you were having dreams too.
I
that
did.
Things were going to be great and you're fine. Now you're facing this reality and the Lord's speaking to you. So what was the impression that you were getting and how was he speaking to you?
Well, he spoke to me in different ways. He spoke to me when I cried out to him and said, how could you do this to me? My son doesn't even know who I am.
He's 3 months old.
3 months. And he said, you know what to do. You adopted. You know all about attachment parenting. You know what to do. And all I could see was these books about attachment parenting sitting on my side table at home. And I said, but how will I know when he knows who I am? And he said, you'll know the day you leave him. And he cries for you the way your daughter does.
Oh, wow.
It took 18 long months and many tears and heartbreak that I can't even describe for him to do that. But one day I walked across our front deck and he cried for me that exact way.
Wow. You're at the hospital. You're being told that your wife has to be put into a medically induced coma. I mean, you must have been in shock and stunned.
I was in shock, absolutely. I was going through the motions, if you will. I called our family and friends, the people closest to Cyndi, to tell them to come to the hospital, that Cindy's dying, and you should be coming to say your goodbyes. They brought Cyndi up to the ICU, and I was in the waiting room there, and it was completely quiet. I was the only one in the ICU waiting room, weirdly enough, and the only book that was in there was the Bible, sitting on a table beside me. And I reflected back upon my life, our lives together, and I thought, I call myself a Christian. I've never read the Bible. I'm a hypocrite. I need to start reading the Bible. If I need God, it's right now. And so I started reading the Bible that day, and I have not stopped studying the Word since. 2.5 weeks into Cyndi's coma, it was not looking good. The doctors every day were saying, she's not going to make it. She's probably going to die today. They were real hope killers at that point,
Yeah, well, I know they try to be realistic.
Right.
But again, it seemed like, boy, they don't think she's going to make it.
No, it was not looking good. And I came home from the hospital one night, and we had family and friends at our place that were looking after my children and just helping out. And they're just so helpful. And one of my friends pulled me aside and said, Mark, we've been talking, and we're not sure if you thought about this, but Cyndi probably doesn't want to live. You look at her hands and her feet, they're all black. They probably have to cut them off, amputate. The doctor's saying she probably has brain damage. You may want to think about pulling the plug. She may not want to live. And I never even thought of that.
That wasn't something that even crossed your mind?
It didn't cross my mind until that point. And it upset me. And I was like, it's not my decision. I jumped back in my car, drove to the hospital, crying my eyes out. I went right into the ICU. And it was about midnight. And the nurses, I said to them, I have to pray with my wife. And it was the first time I said a real honest prayer to God. And I went on my knees right beside Cyndi in ICU. And I said, God, I need to know if Cyndi wants to live, if she wants to die, if she needs more time, if I should pull the plug. And I went home that night, went to bed. Next day, back at the hospital, having lunch with some friends, and my phone rang. And I let it go to voicemail. After lunch, I checked the voicemail. It was my mother-in-law, who had no idea the conversation I had with my friend the night before, or that I even was at the hospital the night before, and what I prayed. And she left me a message, and Barb said, Mark, I'm supposed to leave you this message. I've heard voices all morning saying Cyndi wants to live, she needs more time, don't pull the plug. And I was supposed to leave you this message, so there it is, goodbye, and she hung up.
Well, obviously the Lord intervened. Cyndi, you are brought out of the coma, and I think, to me, one of the most touching aspects of your book is when you look up and you see these kind, gentle eyes that's going to have to deliver some pretty difficult news to you. Tell me about that.
The intensity of love in Mark's eyes really took me back. I don't think I will ever forget it. It's the look of love that tells you where Jesus is in trial. And he looked down at me and said, you've been very ill and they've had to amputate your hands and feet. And he proceeded to tell me we would get our lives back and that he loved me for my soul. And that was why he first fell in love with me.
So what is it when you're speaking to people, what do you tell them? And what would you tell people watching today that maybe it's not, loss of limbs, but a loss of somebody they loved, or sickness has, interfered in their life and their way that they're able to work and raise their family? What encouragement would you bring?
That life is going to bring trials, no matter what, loss of any type. But in that moment, that space in between, we have an opportunity to latch on to Jesus because he wants to carry it. He wants to take it for us. And just let him do that. Take a breath. Let him carry you. Let him take the pain and let him make something absolutely beautiful out of it.